Well, hey, everyone. This is a big day for the Planetary Gig Talk podcast because this is the first video podcast we've done, and it's such a pleasure to be able to talk with Mr. Podcast. I don't know if that's the name he uses all the time, but you know.
Yeah, it's on my tax return.
Blake Althen, everybody. This is Jefferson Glassie, Chief Spiritual Dude of the Planetary Gig Society, whose mission is creating unity through music, but as I also like to say, making connections through music with the intention of bringing peace. And Blake Althen, Blake and I go back a long ways in terms of podcast years, and he's taken some time out of his busy podcasting schedule to talk with us today. And thanks very much, Blake, for making the time.
Oh, no problem, Jeff. Good to see you on the screen.
Yeah, likewise. So just to bring everybody up to speed, started this podcast in, I guess, 2017 probably. And at the same time we started Planetary Gigs Society. We didn't really know what we were doing on either front. We developed some content, which is continually being put up about the power of music on the planetarygigs.org website, but wanted to start a podcast, and I didn't know how to do it, anything about it, didn't have the equipment. My music teacher, my guitar teacher, Eric Weinberg, helped me with some of the equipment, but then I asked around at the American Society of Association Executives, and they said, you need to talk to Blake Althen because he does podcasts for associations.
That's true.
Yeah, and from the very get-go, Blake was unbelievably helpful and generous with his time and the things he taught me. He taught me how to do podcasts, and we used the software Ableton Live.
Yeah, that goes back.
You're dating me. And then a while ago, Blake says, you ought to check out this Riverside video podcasting. So this is the first one we've ever done.
Look what I got myself into.
But Blake is a musician and has, done a lot in the music area. Went to Berkeley for a while, plays a number of different instruments. We played together. So maybe, Blake, first just tell us a little bit about your history with music and what you do. And how
I'll give you the 30-second version here. I started 10 years old playing guitar because I saw some music video and a bunch of long-haired dudes with guitars had all these girls with them. So it was like, that seems like something I could do. Yeah. And then I found out I was pretty good at it, I guess. And then I started liking it. And if I went back in time, it was funny. I wanted to be a rock star when I was a kid. And my mom, the entire time, was saying, sort of politely, you'd be I don't know what they call it, but somebody that works with the bands or books the clubs or something, because I was always booking clubs and hustling the band. And then a few years later, after Berkeley, I ended up as a record producer for many years, traveled to Europe, a few other places, working on no real big hits, some small hits. I won't name names now, but and then at the same time started doing television because I like working with bands, but let's be honest, it's kind of hard to make a living unless you have a smash hit. So I got in television, started doing work with Discovery Channel, History Channel, did a lot of stuff. I did some of the promos for Vikings on History, some A&E stuff, Pawn Stars. And then we just so happened to be in this place called Shirlington, Virginia, our studio. Sheer dumb luck. Like, no joke, sheer dumb luck. We had a studio there, and we had started doing a podcast in 2008 for Women in Film and Video because my business partner, Paula, was the vice president there, and we sort of did a trade thing. And we didn't really know what we were doing, and neither did they. And we figured it out pretty quickly. So that was when the podcast first came out, and then they kind of died for a while. But we kept doing them here and there. And then when they came back with a vengeance, I guess maybe 2015, an association client of mine called me, or now a client, but not a client at the time, association called me up and said, hey, we're nearby. Can we use your studio to do a podcast? And I said, sure. What do you guys do? And they said, we're National Association of such and such. And I said, okay, cool. what's an association? You know, like
that's what everybody asks in our business.
Yeah, and I didn't, and then they came in, and then it's just referral from there. But we found out that we in Shirlington, Virginia, were in sort of the Hollywood of. We're right in between Arlington, D.C., and Alexandria. We're in like the Hollywood of associations. And I was told, this is kind of funny. I was told that our studio was right across from Inner Ear Studios back when that was around. And I was told that our studio was sort of just low class enough, but good enough that it was perfect for associations. In other words, it wasn't like beautiful and super state of the art, you know, with all these Neumann microphones, but it wasn't in the hood or anything. It was a nice, members would enjoy coming in there. They thought their money was being well spent. And now everything's virtual.
Yeah. And you've said, come on over to the studio. And I've been over there a couple times, and really, literally, you just showed me how it all worked, and how you set up the mics and run this, and how you edit the programs, and it was fascinating. It's exactly what I needed, and the whole way through, you've been helpful with that. Even now today, as we launch this, I guess it's like the 120 something podcast, but for the first time on video with this Riverside program. So I really appreciate it. And so now you work with all kinds of associations doing what is it mainly podcasts now? How has it evolved?
Yeah, we do video and podcasts, and we do sort of like some of their video work, like sizzle reels, trade show event, things like that. But mostly what it started in podcast and still is. And the reason I think the association world, even to this day, is so great with podcasts is because, let's be honest, there's a zillion podcasts on cooking, you know. And I remember one of my clients came in and he was talking to me about it, and he said, the reason we're doing this is spending this money. I thought this was kind of profound. Is if you're an association and you don't have a podcast, someone else might do it for you,
right?
You know, and so associations should be the voice of their industry. So it makes perfect sense that they'd have a podcast. And, you know, some people have the staff to do it in-house, and then other people will do some work, and other people it's soup to nuts. But we start out the same way with every association. We have a sort of we took the model of television that we learned at Discovery and applied it to associations. So what I mean by that is we'll do a podcast. We'll do a 4 or 5 podcasts as sort of a pilot. And we do 1, 2, 3, 4, and we progressively will usually start out in show 1 with like the head of government relations, you know, because they usually know that person. They know what the answer is going to be. And then gradually we move to maybe a member that they don't know very well. And at the end of that, we go back and we listen to them all. We actually do a sort of a presentation, let them listen to it. And if we never speak of this again, then we never speak of it again. So I've had some associations, very rarely, but I've had some associations say, no, you know, like, this was great, way too much work. And I've had others that said, all right, we were planning on doing once a month. We think we can do weekly and everything in between, you know, and other people that want to do video podcasts. But what it does is because associations, as you know, Jeff, they hate looking bad, you know?
Yeah.
And which is, no one wants to look bad, but, you know, people always ask me, what's the podcast going to sound like? And unfortunately, I can't tell you. We have to turn on mics and screw up a little bit.
And so, you know, that for any musician listeners out there, maybe some information, you know, NAMM, National Association of Music Manufacturers. I mean, that's an association.
Yeah, something like that. They're known for their big show.
Yeah, their big show. There's a lot of music organizations, associations, National Association for Music Education. There's the Music Therapist. So there certainly are a lot of associations for music. But what I wanted to ask Blake about a little bit is because, you know, the audience for our talk here is, generally speaking, musicians, people who are interested in the power of music, et cetera. But so if you're a musician and you're, you know, doing some gigging, but maybe you want to branch out and do something a little different. I mean, it may not have to be a podcast about the power of music, but maybe it's bass licks or something like that. So what is it? what does it look like? What do you have to do if you're a musician and you decide you want to do an audio or video podcast or something to throw it out there? What are the basic things you need to know?
I think it's fortunately it is very basic, and it's a lot like losing weight. How do you lose weight, Jeff? You eat less, or you eat less carbs, or whatever. You modify your diet and you exercise, right? Mm-hmm. So there's 5 things to a hit podcast, and I'm not saying I've even ever had a giant hit podcast. It's just I've worked on a lot of media and with a lot of development. So the first 3 I like to say is big characters, unique circumstances, high stakes. Now that doesn't mean we have to have the Osbournes, throwing champagne bottles and stuff. But if you take those 3 to start with and sort of apply it to what you're doing, so take an association, the widget manufacturers. They have a built-in interest because it's a unique industry that we're in, the widget making, Obviously there's no widget, maybe it probably is a widget association, so you've got kind of the unique access there that the association has. I'm going to apply this to music, So think of it like that. So what's something unique that you're doing? Like you brought up bass licks. I know you're friends or at least acquaintances with Victor Wooten. So he's kind of a big character and he has amazing bass licks, But in that case, maybe the stakes aren't very strong, So what are you going to put into that sort of makes it sexy or sizzle, like a competition or a ticking clock, which is the next thing we're going to talk about. Mm-hmm. So I don't necessarily look at it as so. In your case, like Peace Through Music, we only have 10 years to save the planet before before climate change destroys us all, and we can fix it through music, and so some sort of high stakes. So I said big characters, unique circumstances, high stakes. That was the next thing I was going to say. Is a ticking clock. So in some of the association world, the ticking clock in music could be countdown to your album release, your EP release, your gig. Maybe talk about rehearsing on it, but it's a big high stakes gig. We're gonna play at the inauguration. We're gonna play at the this big crazy gig, and we need your help. So a ticking clock can really be interesting. And then so I said high stakes, unique circumstances, big characters, ticking clock, and then family. And family doesn't have to be the Osbourne. It doesn't have to be Leave It to Beaver. Again, I'll go back to associations. Everyone in the widget business is in the widget business. It's a community. It's a family. Mm-hmm. So the more a musician can incorporate a sense of my tribe, this is who my people are, and then sort of grow it out from there, the better. So I'll just recap one last time. So now what I was going to say is if you look at your show, what you're trying to do, and for some reason the first 3 to me are the unique character, big character, unique circumstances, high stakes. If you can get those firing up to about a 7 or 8, with one maybe being at a 10, this big huge character, you've got a really good show. If you can get all 5 of those, I mean, if you think of a hit reality show, because podcasts, a lot of them are reality. Survivor, that was huge. Or I want to be a millionaire. Let's do Survivor. You're getting a bunch of big characters, sticking them on an island together, unique circumstances. There's $1 million prize at the end, high stakes. They form tribes, family, and there's a ticking clock before you get eliminated. Hit show. Wow. Right? And you can kind of do that for every hit show. You can kind of break them down into those 5 things. So if you could, and if I could do it, I would do it, Jeff. So that's why I say it's like losing weight. It's like I wouldn't mind losing a few pounds, but it's hard to do, to come up with this, hit that magic formula. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's really helpful. So you are a musician, you want to branch out some. I mean, what are the technical aspects of it? I mean, I know that when I started, I got my Eric recommended Ableton, and then I got this mic, this Yeti mic, and then I had to get the focus right and to get the right chords, and then blah blah blah. What are some of those considerations for somebody wanting to start a podcast?
I would go into first, obviously, your budget, and then A, and then B, what do you want to do? I mean, I'm just sitting there on my Mac laptop, and it sounds, good enough for what we're doing, I would think. Mm-hmm. And you're on your Yeti. I like the Blue Yetis. I like Focusrite. I like all this gear. I think that if you're just going to be solo talking by yourself, a platform like even Zoom could be fine. So the difference between, if we're going to go down this really quickly, a Blue Yeti costs what, about $150? A little poppy thing on top costs $5. A set of headphones can be 10 to as much as you want to spend probably. And you're set for a single person podcast. All right, do I want to have guests? Now, all of a sudden, you might need more of an interface, and you want to have to put your Blue Yeti there you got into an Omni mode so it catches the whole room.
Mm-hmm.
So what kind of quality are you looking for is sort of like number one. And anyone at B&H or Chuck Levins can sort of help you. They can help you get the perfect rig. So again, with budget, that goes into what can you afford, and then what's the goal of it? If you're going to sit around, like we went to the ASAE convention, and we had, I think, 6 headset mics, and we used headset mics like, Monday Night Football or like the Madonna mics, as we call them, because we were going to be sitting around a very noisy room. So usually a place like a B&H or a Chuck Levins or a Sweetwater, they'll all get you squared away with the gear. Really, what you want to figure out is what are my requirements? I want to go in the field. You went to Nepal. I'm going to be traveling to the mountains of Nepal. Okay, the internet connection may not be as solid there as we found out, and then you might get chased down by monkeys.
I did.
So
yeah,
I know during the show. It was awesome. That's a good podcast. But and then I'll just talk in 30 seconds on platforms. There's really, the way I've seen so far as of the recording of this in August of 2022, there's Riverside and Zencast. They have various platforms. The reason most podcasters will use those is they make a recording on your machine, then send it to the host or the mixer, whoever it's going to be. And they send it on over, and that way you get a pure, clean file, as opposed to Zoom, where everything, a lot of times, is going over the internet.
Right. Interesting.
So, and then mixing wise, like you used Ableton. We were using Ableton back then too because of the clip launch. You could launch sound effects. Again, I would trust the people at a Sweetwater or B&H to help you out with that once you know your requirements.
Yeah, I mean, I just started off, and frankly, almost the first 50 podcasts, people came here right into Studio One at the worldwide headquarters of the Planetary Gig Society. I mean, had to arrange that. They came over and sat across from me. I had a mic for them, mic for me, and did that. And then I think you probably told me about some...
This during COVID.
Yeah, well, even before COVID, I went to some place. I had these other mics with the football announcer microphones.
Yeah, the Monday Night Football.
Yeah, so I did some that were, at venues, even sometimes loud venues with these mics, and it worked. And then when Zoom came along, we started doing these. You could do them distance. You could interview anybody in the world, and these were not video; they were just audio. But I would like to look at somebody on Zoom or Facebook Messenger video or whatever.
So you have a human connection.
So I could see them, and then I would just record it into, and you helped me figure out how to do that, record it into Ableton that way. And so there's a lot of options, and I'm one who is always advocating for musicians to, do it, get out there, do more, do whatever whatever music is telling you to do, and maybe doing some interviews and or TV shows globally, or however you want. I mean, there's no real limit on it. But a lot of this, where we are, and particularly today, came through your help and advice and friendship and all, and I really appreciate it. So a little bit about this. Can you tell people a little bit about this Riverside format that we're using? Right.
So the neat thing about it, like I said before, is it's making a recording right now as we're recording on my computer and your computer. So if there's any glitches in the show after we're done, you can just ignore them while you're recording, and my video file and audio file will be beamed to you. Then afterwards, it will do sort of if you want to, it will do an auto mix and an auto edit. If you want it to do that, it will just sort of combine everything and send you a finished file. You can even throw it up to YouTube if you wanted it to. It can do it. Just literally push one button if you don't want to do any editing. It can go live to YouTube. We could push a button and we could go live right now over to YouTube. and it's got echo cancellations for if you have people in noisy rooms. I mean, a lot of them do. I'm not even pushing the platform as much as like just the concept of it. Again, Zencast does a very similar thing. I have no stock in Riverside. You can share your screen, and if you wanted to show some pictures or something, it would record all that. So that and the last thing, which is kind of neat, is if you get, I think it's the enterprise version. If you're doing a lot of shows, you can actually see the other person's setup, and you can help them troubleshoot it. So that's kind of neat if you're the host.
Oh yeah, that's great. And then what we've done for all of these podcasts is I finish them, send it up, edit them, write up a little blurb, and send them to Blake and Paula, and they put them out into the podcast world of Apple Music, all
the distributors,
including now. I think on for YouTube, it would be the video part. It would be audio in the audio only connection. So I really appreciate that too, and you've been able to help with that. So anyway, glad to be able to bring this information to folks. This is kind of a podcast about the power of music, but it's this one in particular is a little bit about one of the pathways or techniques where musicians or artists or others can, tap into their desires to have more conversation about a particular topic without that much of an investment, and put it out there, which hopefully helps their musical brand and gets their thoughts out there.
I would correct one thing you said there. Is not without much of an investment. Yes, monetarily, it may not be much of an investment, but I would venture that you've put a lot of thought and time and effort into planning and getting, and it's like, I can get a guitar for $150 a Squire. Doesn't mean I'm going to be whoever, Stevie Ray Vaughan or
right.
A lot of people think you can just buy a mic and talk into it, and you're going to have a hit podcast.
Yeah, well, that's certainly not sure, because I don't know what a hit podcast is either. For me,
it's funny. We asked. We can close out on this. I asked clients, one of the first questions I asked them with associations is, and musicians might want to ask this too, is what is success? And so, as an example, with I'll just use makeup and industry, the Widget Association, I might say, hey, Mr. CEO of the Widget, if we have 7 listeners, would you continue to fund this show? And he'll say, where are you going with this, Blake? Is usually what they'll say. and I'll say, well, what if those listeners were, let's just say it's retail. What if those listeners was the CEO of Best Buy, Neiman Marcus, fill in your giant brands from here on out, 7 of them, would you continue? And they go, absolutely, And then I have other CEOs of widget associations that go, no, we're looking for more mid-level. And we want to see 20,000 downloads. I have another client that I worked with that had a major celebrity on their show. Again, associations had a major celebrity on their show who was not in their industry. So this is always a quagmire, because they can go on Facebook and do a $25 boost and get 3,000 downloads because of this celebrity. But the celebrity's not their market. It's not their industry. So who cares? Would you rather get 20 people, widget makers, or would you rather get 3,000 Star Wars fans?
Right.
Or whoever this, I'm not going to say who the celebrity was, but anyway, so goals in both downloads, and then who are you talking to? Who are you trying? You're obviously trying to reach musicians first, probably, Jeff, but you'll take more people,
Yeah, I mean, you make a really good point about the investment. Having done 120 some, I mean, that's a couple hours each one. And for the first almost 100, I did one a week. So that's a lot of calling people up and emailing and trying to set up the time and to get them to come over to my house and all that. I mean, it is a lot. My goal, what success looked like, was just doing it and having conversations and learning from people about what their views were of the power of music and what we could do to help make a better world through music. So it's a little bit of one of those things where, the butterfly's wings, if it can have an effect, maybe cross the ocean someday with making a storm or something. Yeah. So that was kind of the goal.
That's cool. I would write it down. Like, I just want to, for instance, I've written some dream stories that are on iTunes, or on ebooks, like just meditation stuff. I don't promote it. I don't do anything. I just write it. I put it out there. And every once in a while, someone contacts me and says, I really liked it,
Yeah.
So if that's your goal, that's my goal, is I just write it, I put it out there, and I forget about it. Other things, when when we started doing podcasting for associations, when we said, holy crap, we're in the Hollywood here of associations, we were going to ASAE events and buying advertising, and our goal was to pick up X clients in a year and make this much revenue. And so contrast those two things with the butterfly wings and the evil plan to take over the world.
Right. And I suppose, there certainly are a lot of people who do podcasts and have a YouTube channel and get subscribers and can make a reasonable amount of money. So there's that option too, I guess.
Yep. Usually it's going to go, if you have a podcast, you're going to have other things. Like if you're a musician, you might be in a band. Like if you're a touring musician, do a podcast from the bus, the hotel room, but again, keep that going back to like, what happened today that's different? If I get, like what we had for breakfast is not that interesting unless you got food poisoning or something, like it's just not interesting. So like what were you, what was riveting? And then usually the show will, if you do it enough, as you found, Jeff, your first one, you might've been a little nervous. Your voice might've been a little cracky. And by the 10th one you did, you're just sitting down like a pro, and it starts to find its voice. Yeah. That's why in association world, we do those pilots to let them practice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, hopefully this has been some good information for folks. I'm going to thank Blake Althen right here and Human Factor.
You start the music?
For all you do. Yeah, I'm going to do that right now. For all that you do, here's our outro music. And remember, everybody, Planetary Gig Society, planetarygigs.org, and we have lots of information about music, the power of music, the Planetary Gig Talk live conversations, the Planetary Music Project videos. We got a few of those programs coming out where we've been visiting Santa Fe, Greece, talking with musicians around the world, and Concert for Democracy too. So we're doing a bunch of things. Hopefully you can check out that stuff. And Blake, thanks for all you've done and all you've really helped out with here. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Find the stop button?
I got the stop button. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.